I need you to get that cat out of this apartment because I have enough to worry about, okay?
I was suggested an animated movie by Cartoon Saloon called My Father's Dragon. A story about a boy named Elmer whose mother and he run a store that eventually goes out of business because of the changing times, forcing his mother and he to go to the city for work and for better opportunities. This movie was a lot of things, and it started off very strongly, then it kind of made me feel annoyed, and then it ended very sweetly, and I'll tell you exactly why. What's touching is the relationship between Elmer and his mom, although I was a bit confused because the person narrating is saying that her father lived a very long time ago, however long ago that was. She makes it seem as though he lived in ancient times when gods and trolls and stuff walked the earth. So I don't know if she's telling the story from way, way in the future. I have no idea what the whole point of her even coming in and being the narrator of this story was, because the story could have easily had done without the narration. And if they opted to keep the narration in there, they really didn't need to have it from the point of view of Elmer's daughter telling the story to whoever she's telling it to, because it just came across quite gratuitous and moot. I mean, for goodness sake, the movie is called My Father's Dragon. Who's your father? Who are you? We never see the daughter. We only hear her voice, and she's so disconnected from the rest of the story, as you only hear her in the very beginning and the end. So it actually facilitates the viewers forgetting completely about this third party who is telling the story on which the title of the story is based. Anyway, Elmer always liked helping his mom. He likes fixing things and solving her problems. But this is a problem he cannot solve. When he realizes that when they've moved to their little shoddy apartment in the city, the mother is broke and trying to handle everything on her own, and there's nothing he can do to help. The old landlady tells him, look, your rent is due whether you like it or not, because she's heard every excuse in the book. This puts additional pressure on Elmer's mom. She made a whole promise to him that they'd rebuild their store and everything would be okay again, just like it was. But after she's required to use up all her savings to call around on an ancient payphone box to see if there are jobs available, she ends up using up all their savings. It wasn't much to begin with, but it gave Elmer hope that they at least started from somewhere. The mother, however, is in the position where Elmer doesn't understand because she's not being completely open with him, and he's frustrated with her because she lied to him. While Elmer's waiting for his mom, he sees these kids across the street and they're putting on an act and getting some money for it. They also are quite heartless, pushing a cat away that's trying to get their attention and is probably hungry. Anyway, Elmer sees that they are getting some money and he has hope. So he devises a plan on the spot to sell some of the items that he got from his old shop, the one his mother and he used to run together. Since he has more experience with sales, having run the shop with his mother, he knows exactly what to say to get people to come and purchase whatever he's selling, which is rubber bands. The plan is successful as Elmer is able to draw a customer that was about to drop one of her coins into the jar of the kids across the street into his instead. As you can imagine, this does not go over very well with the leader of the group, who threatens him in a nasty manner to return the coin he received because her group was there first. She argues that he took her client. Obviously, she knows nothing about competition. And while it seems unfair, as Elmer said, she clearly wasn't doing a good enough job. The kids end up jumping him for the coin and successfully take it away from him. The city life is already proving to be very disheartening. Anyway, the cat that was across the street earlier sneaks into Elmer's apartment. He's not allowed to have her, but he makes friends with the cat. But Elmer's mom loses her temper and ends up chasing him away, as he's not supposed to have cats in the apartment. They can't afford to be kicked out, but the landlady sees that they're actually having issues and she feels horrible. In this segment, Elmer is fleeing from the apartment and it looks as though the walls are closing in on him until he reaches the pier and is able to emit a piercing scream of just sheer exasperation and despondency. Not long after, he discovers that the cat can actually talk. Like the visuals of the walls closing in on Elmer, I really do believe that from henceforth, this is his imagination doing the heavy lifting because he's in a situation where he has no means of escape when it comes to hope. Obviously, the cat can't really talk, and obviously those walls weren't really closing in on him. The cat has an answer to all his problems and claims there is an island far away, and there is a dragon on that island, and the dragon will solve all of his problems. The cat summons a demented, unhinged, and maniacal character that just makes you want to reach through the screen and pop her with a needle. I'm all for kids' animated films, but what I could never stand, even when I was like really little myself, myself is when certain characters are just so over the top to the point where it borderlines moronic. It makes you feel more stupid watching it. This is where the movie starts to feel as though it's geared towards 4-year-olds due to the maddening elementary dialogue of this character and every other character here and after.
That kind of tickles.
Soda.
Yes.
Say hello.
Ew.
Soda.
Yes. Did you see it? Oh my God! Shut up.
It feels like an unfair and unwarranted bait and switch, regardless of whether or not it is an animated film. It began as something that the whole family could enjoy. There were obviously very mature themes and a not so muted message. Then it immediately went from mature and family friendly to unhinged and suitable for clowns of all ages or babies whose brains aren't fully developed.
Last stop till the island, so stock up. Elmer! 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 Are you awake? You're awake, right? You snore. Did you know that?
I don't even understand what the point was in making this regression. Even if this is in the mind of the main character, Elmer, he strikes me as a bit more mature than someone who would conjure characters with whom you can barely hold a conversation. Even when I was a kid and I had my imaginary friends, I never summoned anyone this painstakingly aggravating. I don't know if this was the point in the movie where they expected kids to fasten their seatbelts and get ready for the ride, but it sure seemed as though they were trying to grab someone or something's attention. I have to admit, though, that this immediately turned me off, and you can argue that it's because I'm now an adult, but even as a kid, there's a reason why I hated certain cartoons, but I loved things that didn't treat me like an insane child that talks in a way I imagine birds on heroin would speak if they were given the gift of the human language. And at this moment, I did pause the movie because I decided I was not going to watch it because it clearly was not for me. However, I returned and carried on because I wished to see the dragon they were referring to. Something told me at this precise time that the dragon was going to be a worse letdown than the sperm whale, but I clung to hope. Oh yes, I'll perish for my naivete. So as Elmer is asleep on this whale named Soda, we then get to experience beautiful visuals. But the experience is ruined by the annoying character's incessant babbling.
You're awake, right? You snore. Did you know that? Or maybe that was your tummy. Does your tummy talk when it's hungry? You hungry? You want something orangey?
I still am of the mind that all of this is in Elmer's imagination, because I imagine, based on what he's going through with his mother and being in this strange new world, not having any friends, being an extrovert, that he would want someone to always be talking to fill in the silence so he doesn't feel alone. Elmer's need to always be in control also means that the people around him should always sort of be controlled. He likes providing for people and being the one responsible for coming up with the answers to their problems. So if he is smarter than everybody else around him, or the person who is able to keep people calm, it makes him feel more at home, more at ease. Elmer functions best under pressure, when everything is falling around him, so it stands to reason that his imagined characters would have frantic personalities in order for him to be their rock and source of stability, in order for him to feel as though he is in control of the situation, or he is the only one that has all the answers. He's the same way with his mother and the environment in which he grew up, i.e. helping her run the shop and making people feel good. Maybe not having his father in the picture helped make him into who he is, but I just think that's the character's go-to. And we see this boil over later with another character's interaction. I am so happy when we finally get to ditch the annoying and overwhelmingly grating whale character. I usually love whales, but good grief. We could have gone without her incessant and useless dialogue. Trust me, cetaceans are near and dear to my heart, but this is one of the exceptions. Elmer quickly learns that this task of getting the dragon from this island is actually a rescue mission. The dragon is actually keeping the island afloat. Every time it sinks, the dragon has to pull it back up. Logic aside, from wondering how a very small winged dragon could hold up an island 100 times its size, I actually am shocked at Elmer's actions. The whale mentioned that there were wild animals on the island keeping the dragon captive. When Elmer sees them, I'm assuming he can understand their language because they are talking and we can understand them, and because we've seen that every animal so far that he's met can talk and he can talk to them and understand them. He also hears them having a conversation about how they'll be doomed if they don't have the dragon to lift the island. He notices several of the small animals panicking because they're afraid they're going to sink into the water. The movie portrays Elmer as though he didn't hear their fear and desperation when he decided to steal the dragon, thus allowing the island to sink into the water and consequently taking all of the life forms on it with it into the water. I think it's quite intriguing that they showed him to be so selfish, despite the fact that the beginning of the movie showed him to be quite the contrary. On one hand, he's doing it to support his mother. On the other hand, he has no qualms about sending an entire island of innocent animals to their deaths in the sea, just so he can get the dragon free, and get this, for the sole goal of bringing it back to the city and having it perform in a play for him in order to raise funds for his mother so they can open up their shop. It's strange why it never occurred to him to explore another choice at this point. Maybe he wanted to save the dragon because he really did believe that these animals were evil because they were holding the dragon captive. Maybe the whale scared him by telling him that these animals were wild, even though she herself is a wild animal and he was talking to her. Maybe it's because there's also a very large group of them gathered together, carnivores and herbivores alike, and he doesn't know these animals. After all, he was introduced to Solo the whale via Whoopi Goldberg the cat.
The dragon does what I make him do, and so should you, when I tell you.
This is where we meet Sewa the gorilla, who appears to be the island's leader, and Quan the baboon, who is a rationalist and pragmatist. Quan has a dominant demeanor and is always willing to take action. Sewa is like a calm soul who is keeping everyone together and attempting to keep everyone calm. And yes, he is played by the guy who played Wednesday in American Gods. To free the dragon, Elmer cuts these thick-ass vines with some old scissors he got from his mother's shop. That is how I know this is in his imagination. I remember using scissors like that, and they don't cut for shit. You're lucky if you get one full use out of them before they either become smooth as a cockroach's back or completely fall into pieces. And look, this one is already in pieces. Part of its mouth is missing. The Wolf Walker story is more convincing than this, unless you consider that this is all in Elmer's imagination, just like the depiction of the walls closing in on him. Elmer succeeds in releasing the dragon, which then enrages everyone on the island. They're merely trying to survive, so I can't really blame them. It begs the question of how they even obtained the dragon in the first place, but good job on the annoying whale for instilling in Elmer the notion that all these animals are evil because they have captured this dragon and are forcing him or it to hold up the island, because that's exactly what I thought until I heard the animals talking. Elmer's still a kid, so he probably wouldn't consider that there's more to it than this. I guess he also assumes that the dragon is going to be a fun-loving, incessant-talking, bumbling idiot like most of the animal characters Elmer has met so far. Anyway, he frees the dragon and hitches a ride on the rope he just cut. Sewa orders Quan to get him. Quan uses the torch fire to bring down the rotund dragon.
The dragon!
This is the big reveal for me. When Elmer finally lands with the dragon and they make a show of building suspense by not revealing the dragon immediately, I was excited and my hopes were raised at this point. It brought back memories of How to Train Your Dragon and Hiccup's first meeting with Toothless. Even though Toothless is goofy, How to Train Your Dragon did an excellent job of making him appear dangerous and fearful of humans, especially given his previous encounters with them. So with all of that prior experience and the heavy expectation due to the movie amping us up and wanting us to be expectant, here is the grand payoff.
My fire-breathing dragon?
Ow.
I mean you no harm, dragon. Huh?
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
I think I hurt myself. Oh, you rescued me!
No! No!
The disappointment that I felt after seeing this is almost indescribable. The ire I felt after seeing this two-toned, Teletubby, elementary design, smooth-faced, bumbling, whale-stabbing, homeless-hugging, squirrel-sniffing, carjacking, ambulance-wrecking, lip-swelling, cat-twerking, mind-numbingly ugly, long-neck, micro-winged ass-eating dragon. It was just too much. Why can't we have nice things? They built up the expectation of us seeing a large, majestic, fire-breathing dragon, something most little kids are infatuated with, only to get this. And what makes it worse is that this character is worse than the whale.
I can do this. Hold on. Wait. I'm usually a lot sweatier than this.
Okay, stop.
Did you just...
That was my armpit.
Kill me now.
Oh my god. I half expected and half desired a hunter to jump out from the bubble plant and pop it in the neck. This coming from someone who loves dragons, by the way. They're my favorite animal. I don't even consider this thing a dragon. To me, it's just a page out of Insanity's book. I hate the design, and what's worse, I hate its stupid freaking face. Oh my god. The fucking rage I feel looking at it makes me want to rip my own fingernails off with my teeth and swallow them whole. I get that this is a kid movie, but for the love of God, why do they have to make everything look so freaking dumb? I guess they didn't want to scare kids or something, but look at How to Train Your Dragon, right? A lot of us grew up with that movie, and as we get older, we can still enjoy it. Look at Shrek. Look at Wolfwalkers. Is this the same animation company that made Wolfwalkers, by the way? Because if it is, Jesus Christ. I mean, they have the same style, so that's why I'm wondering. But Wolfwalkers is another clear example of how to do a kid's movie right. You actually want the parents to sit down and watch this with their kids, don't you? Imagine being stuck with this thing in a room for over an hour. Imagine being a mom and being tired, or even a father, because your baby has been keeping you up. And then you hear this for a whole hour and a half while you're trying to spend time with your little one. I don't have kids, but this would seriously make me regret motherhood in that moment. I'd be wondering, as I rub my temples, if this is what I have to look forward to when it comes to entertainment for my child, that I would sit down and watch it with them. Because if the kid likes it, you know, it's kind of an asshole move to be like, you know, we're not watching this because this shit is cringe. And yes, most responsible parents do have to sit down and watch a movie with their child so they know it's safe for them to watch. I feel like in an effort to make it safe and kid-friendly, the movie actually inadvertently made this, whatever the frick this is supposed to be, terrifying, through and traumatic. Do you know why so many children are afraid of clowns? The majority of it boils down to the fact that you can't see the true emotion on a clown's face. It's always smiling, or always sad, or however they draw their mouths, that's how they stay. And it's very unsettling. This supposed dragon has a human-like face when you look at it straight on, and for some reason, it's so uncanny. On top of it acting like a drunk, insane person high on Percocet, it's super annoying. This movie must be something geared towards children ages 2 to 5. It's just very confusing because of how the movie began. Some advice for keeping your audience engaged is to not start with the mature theme and then bait and switch the entire feel into Paw Patrol, which is way more palatable than this at the moment.
I think I hurt myself.
Holy shit!
Yep, this is nightmare fuel. Anyway, the dragon, who we later know as Boris, tells Elmer all these things that he would do, like breathing, fire, and blah blah blah, to show his appreciation. But when Elmer sees amazed at this, me too, thinking he can actually do all this stuff that he's promising, there's another letdown, and him telling us immediately after that, he's just kidding, he can't actually do all that stuff because fire is scary and yada yada. For him to actually become that, what we're all expecting and what the show is building up to, he needs to become an after dragon.
See?
So Boris says that after he saves the island, he will become an after dragon, which means that he didn't actually need to be rescued because he was there of his own volition in an attempt to become that. The depiction of what is on the rock actually makes me excited because now we, the audience, has to look forward to this as much as Boris does. Like, we're actually sitting there in peak anticipation, longing for the time we're going to see the dragon achieve what is being portrayed on the rock. Just like with Pokemon Evolutions, it would be interesting to see him not only attain his goal, but to get his mighty wings and to grow large and majestic. So, in this kid's movie, Boris starts talking about how every 100 years, the dragons come to this island to become after dragons.
Dragons have been coming to Wild Island for thousands of years. Because when we turn 100, which is only 100 divided by 10 in human boy years, which is
10! It's 10!
10! I said it at the same time.
He's attempting to explain to Elmer how many times that would be in human years. And Elmer gets frustrated with him as if kids watching this would know what 10 into 100 is. This movie is so confusing. Is it for kids or not? Like, okay, knowing if it's for children and the age range seems to be very low, Why are you making the extremely infantile character feel ashamed or stupid for not knowing what 100 divided by 10 is? Something very, very young children are unlikely to know. What was even the point of that? Boris could have just said that 100 years in dragon years is 10 in his years, in human years. There was no need for all of that other stuff. So it's confusing because he concludes with the sentence.
I said it at the same time. When we're 10 years old, we come here to Wild Island to do a rite of passage.
But you just said...
Because when we turn 100, which is only 100 divided by 10 in human boy years,
Boris was in the middle of explaining how many years in human years, 100 years in dragon years would be. So when you end the whole sentence with, we come here when we're 10 years old, in a child's mind, or in anybody's mind, it negates the fact that he just said they come here every 100 years or when they're 100 years. There could have been a much simpler way of writing that for the sake of children who may be having trouble with math, without making them feel like idiots through the asinine dialogue. I get that this was exposition to help us as the audience understand how young the dragon is, or in comparison to a human, what the age of the dragon would be, but it was a very sloppy way of delivering it. So all this also begs the question, why did they not just say the dragons come here every 100 years and leave it at that? And then Elmer ask him, you're 100 years old? Yeah, but that's probably like 10 years old for you. See how simplistic that is? In their gratuitous effort to make it simpler by utilizing a smaller number that little people could understand, they made it more confusing while shaming the people watching for not knowing their divisibles in the process. So it all comes back to Boris, anyway, needing to save the island, which is what he was trying to do before. However, what he was doing wasn't working because the island kept sinking worse than before. Even though he knows he's supposed to do this in order to become an after dragon or to evolve, he has no idea actually how to save the island. This is because the character is made to be stupid. This works out quite well. Like I said, I believe this is in Elmer's imagination, because Elmer is the kind of person that requires people around him to be inferior or not as smart as he is, or to need him. He desires to be in control of everything and to be the one who brings solutions to help everyone. This is not at all his fault, because there are individuals with similar personalities who can be quite useful. They're very good at maintaining peace and order and a sense of calmness and leadership. However, like with Littlefoot in The Land Before Time, especially in the later movies, it can become sour and engender arrogance, narcissism, and a lack of accountability if left unchecked or unchallenged. People with this personality type often prey on people like Boris and feed off of their constant display of stupidity, dependence, or ignorance. By the way, I only realized that the actor voicing the dragon was Dustin from Stranger Things after the movie, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We see shortly thereafter Sewa utilizing Quan to track down the human and the dragon. In the meantime, Boris and Elmer are following directions via the rocks with arrows that are marked all over the island to lead them to a wise old turtle that will tell them how to save the island. On their journey, they will meet a mother crocodile carrying her babies and was about to attack Elmer and eat him. Finally, something that actually, well, no matter how short it was, felt dangerous. But it stopped when the island violently shakes as it starts sinking deeper. Something that is an ever-looming threat throughout the entire movie. Elmer saves Boris by having the doofy dragon bite onto a lollipop so Elmer can pull him up. Yeah, I'm convinced all of this is a vein of imaginative spectacle conjured by Elmer. Quan has to choose between saving the little lemurs and getting the dragon in order to save the whole island. Sewa tells Quan that one day he'll have to lead the island. Oh, by the way, don't worry too much about this because honestly, it ends up going nowhere. It's cute as a sideline dialogue, but the way they focus in on it makes it seem as though it's going to be very important later. It's not. Although I do appreciate the movie not making Quan an absolute villain, he wants to survive and he wants to save the island, which to him is more important than a few lemurs drowning. Along the way, Elmer encounters tigers that appear scarier than they would in real life to a child who's never seen one. He's able to distract them by throwing a gumball out of his bag. Elmer won't let Boris look into his bag, but if they're in a jam, he'll come up with a plan that involves one of the trinkets or mementos from the store his mother and he used to run. So every seemingly worthless item in his backpack becomes an essential tool along the way. In a later scene, Sewa's Hamtaro-like operatives attempt to capture the dragon by, well, tickling it. Elmer is not really paying attention, and so he ends up stumbling into a hole that was a trap set up for Boris. There is something down there with Elmer, and it's revealed to be a rhino. And in this moment, I, once again, have hope that we're actually going to see something dangerous. Finally, something with stakes. But then it opens its freaking mouth and starts talking, and I slap myself in the face. This is all planned, I suppose, so that Elmer will feel bad about running away from the adorable animals that need his help. It would have been more intriguing, though, if some of the creatures were extremely dangerous, as they did with the tigers to some extent. Or if one of the animals didn't seem particularly cute or couldn't talk, but was still saved because it was just a morally just thing to do. But you know, you gotta have big name actors in your movie and everything's gotta be cutesy dootsy. So the rhino is trapped in there with her baby, and Boris ends up dropping down into the hole to save Elmer, but now they're all trapped. When the gorilla dude catches up, he sees Iris the rhino in there, and she's able to get herself out because she doesn't want Sewa to know that Boris and Elmer are down there. They never show how she's able to get out, though.
No, it's okay. See?
I thought they would have at least shown Boris, like, trying to help her out from beneath, but she's able to get herself out by just walking on those broken twigs, her big semi-trailer ass. Anyway, Iris knows where this wise old turtle is, and she shows them, knowing that he will give them the answer as to how to save the island.
Boris, Elmer, Sewa has forbidden all the animals from going there. But I know where Aratua is.
So the gorilla guy forbade everyone from going there. Right? That's what they said. Jesus Christ, this must be a new generation of animals or something. But Sewa said they can't go there. But if she knows, like, enough of them that know that he has the answers as to how to save the island. So it can't be that every single animal there has no idea. Nobody thought to go up there anyway once they saw the island was sinking. Or that the dragon possibly wouldn't come back. They just keep trying to follow the dragon and get it back instead of actually going to the source of who they know has the answers as to how. I don't know, it just feels like a natural selection kind of situation, you know? I mean, yeah, granted, if you still need the dragon to do this, it would at least make sense that some people go after the dragon, and some people go to find the turtle. Anyway, Iris leads Elmer and Boris to the turtle. It's this giant crystallized turtle shell, and Elmer gets a bit too pushy with Boris and tries to encourage him to ask the turtle how to save the island. Boris loses his balance and cracks the shell down the middle by accident. When Elmer goes inside the shell to try and apologize to the turtle, he finds the skeleton of the turtle there. I was about to give credit to the movie for at least being somewhat dark, but because everything has been so kidified for the majority of the story, I expected the turtle to jump from behind the wall in this shrieking and annoying voice, saying that he was playing a prank on them or something. But no, it turns out that the turtle is actually dead, and for the first time I feel relief, because something feels real. It's amazing how that pans out. It's amazing how relatable the characters are when some of their adventure or stories are based on some element of reality. This is also the first time we see Boris show an emotion of sadness. He is always doofy and over the top, and so you never really take him seriously or relate to him. I don't mind if a character is quirky, but smart. I don't mind if a character is dumb, but chill. But there is something about the odd and uncomfortable combination of a character being so freaking stupid and over hyper at the same time that just sends me over the edge of sanity. That's what Boris is. So, to actually see him confused and not know what to do and sad, I start to actually feel bad for him. Boris falls into despondence, and Iris asks Elmer if they're going to be saved and if they have the answer, and the turtle gave them the answer. Elmer lies in that moment and tells her yes, but Boris needs some place to sleep first because, yeah, he's not feeling well. She gives him a place to sleep, which is safe. Elmer lets down his guard a little bit and gives Boris something from his bag, only because Boris is feeling sad, and even lets him look inside his bag. Seeing Boris cry as he picks up the tangerine and tells a story about his brother became an after dragon and brought him back home a tangerine made him even more relatable to me. It felt real in that moment that he had family. His family was proud of his big brother, and he wanted his family to be proud of him too. Another hint that this is in Elmer's head is that Boris only eats the peels of the tangerine and not the flesh. There's usually no animal in existence that would eat a fruit and only eat the skin of the fruit and not the flesh. It makes more sense if you have an imaginary friend and you're eating the fruit and you're discarding the peels, and so it doesn't feel like you're alone or you're wasting it. You imagine that the creature that you're sitting with is eating the peels. You know, I mean, I'm sure there are animals that eat the skin and not the fruit, but they're definitely not in the norm. Boris compliments Elmer by telling Elmer that he is not afraid of anything, and Boris wishes that he was like Elmer. Elmer shamelessly takes his compliment, which I realize is a flat-out, half-baked lie. Maybe he's trying to make Boris feel better, or maybe he's lying to himself to try and keep control of the situation. After all, the only reason why he's friends with Boris in the first place is because he wants to use Boris to make money so that his mom can open their shop and they can be financially okay and everything can go back to the way it was. Before setting out on this adventure, Elmer, if he had known that the dragon would just fly away and live his life, he would not have made that trip. Feeling the pressure on his shoulders because Boris told him that he is the answer guy, Elmer confidently tells Boris that when Boris wakes up from his nap, Elmer would have found the answer. And so, the human boy miraculously dreams about the answer, which has to do with breaking the roots that are holding down the island, because that's how islands work. I was a little bit disappointed in that because from him being the answer guy and him being touted as a character that always finds solutions, I was really hoping that they wouldn't Mary Sue him or just plot armor him into just dreaming up the answer, that he would have actually gone out of his way to try and solve the answer or find out what was going on. But no, he just has a vision. Oh, it must be this. I found the answer because it just came to me. How? How would you know that? If there is some element of spirits influencing him with visions, that was not made clear in the story at all. Anyway, Iris ends up leading the guerrilla leader to Elmer and Boris because he threatened her baby, or rather Quan threatened her baby. And I'm pretty sure the leader knew about this. What kind of leader who is supposed to be protecting these animals keeps her baby captive or allows the baby to be kept captive? And at this moment, we see that Sewa comes up right behind Quan. He knew Quan was doing this. That means he allowed it. And it seems as though he does all his dirty stuff or dirty work through Quan because he knows Quan will do it and get it done. And I get it. They're trying to survive. And what matters most is having the dragon lift up the island so they can save everyone. So, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures. But even still, why would Iris still follow him? Why would she be so at ease about this, being a rhinoceros? The same person who claims he's there to keep everyone safe and that should trust him, you know? But like I said, everyone's desperate. They gotta do what they have to do. When Elmer is confronted, he doubles down on his lie and says that the turtle told them how to save the island. And again, maybe that was what the dream was. I don't know. It's not really fleshed out coherently in this movie. So him saying that, is that him lying, or is that what the turtle told him in a dream? It's spirit? You never know. It just comes off like he's lying because he just lied prior to the rhinoceros. It's so tasteless, it just seems like the main character got lucky and just randomly dreamt of the solution. The gorilla does tell everyone, though, that the turtle is actually dead. So, obviously, cat's out the bag, your little human friend is lying. Boris grabs onto Elmer when they pitch over the cliff, and one of the apes grabs onto Boris and his broken wing, and it cracks back in place, and whoop-de-doo, now the wing works. You'd think with Elmer being so smart, he would have found a solution, just like Hiccup did in How to Train Your Dragon, and how to fix Boris's wing in order to help him fly, and thus bring them back home. But whatever, nobody ever addresses that. He just sees the broken wing, and I'm expecting, just like every other kid movie where you see this happen, to at least try to see how he can fix it. And it never once enters his mind, which is so out of character for Elmer. But now that Boris can fly away again, he flies away from the island with Elmer, and they feel great. Quan feels betrayed that Sewa lied to everyone, so he ditches everyone and gets off the island.
We can go now. I can take you back to Nevergreen.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, even after all of that, even after Elmer has met Iris and her child and sees that there are good animals on the island, as soon as Boris can fly, this dude is like, let's get the frick out of Dodge and take you back home to Nevergreen so you can help me out. He never even gave a second thought to those other animals. It's Boris who has to convey his sadness for Elmer to even look down and think about the other animals. That's when Elmer remembers his dream about the roots holding down the island. The solution must be to break them. Elmer makes Boris trust him again to tie him up and lift up the island until the roots snap. But Boris has other ideas. Even though all he needed to do was snap the last root, He decides to jump into the fire and electricity, but he's afraid of what's coming out of the island. He and Elmer have a fight, and Elmer said some hurtful things because, like I said, Elmer needs to be in control. God forbid Boris comes up with a solution on his own that doesn't require Elmer's help.
Because I have to get us out of this mess!
I said leave me alone!
But this is not all bad because it's a decent learning experience for Elmer to learn to let go and to let other people come up with their solutions, to let other people find a solution to their own problems, and to not need to be in control all the time.
Forget you too.
And this is also the part where we know Boris is going to become an after dragon. And so it's exciting because this is the only thing that I was looking forward to and the only reason I was hanging on and kept watching this movie, and it's seeing him become a mighty dragon. He jumps into the hole, it automatically disintegrates all the roots, saving the island. It's very touching because after the fight, Elmer had come back and re-encouraged Boris, apologizing for the hurtful things he said. It also helped, though, that the other animals made him feel really guilty and called him out on his horrible behavior. That's really the only reason he went back, so he's not really that nice of a person. But anyway, after Boris saves the island, it seems as though he's dead, and this part actually made me cry because Elmer did tell him he'd be waiting for him when he got back. And then to see the water still and nothing happening, nothing stirring, we all think that Boris is dead. And they let it sit there for a while so you can really believe that's the case. But something does stir. Elmer laments for his friend and Boris comes back. And you are waiting for this beautiful form because this is the climax of the movie. This is the summit of the metaphorical entertainment mountain that you were waiting to reach atop as you were journeying through the story that these people were a part of in this movie. It is the only thing that you were really looking forward to. Yes, they made friendships and they met each other, and that's great. But they already set up from the beginning of the meeting between Boris and Elmer that Boris's whole goal was to become an after dragon. Breathe fire and have majestic wings, and you're waiting to see some freaking Digimon evolution type dragon come out, or something similar to that. And so my eyes were just peeled, waiting in anticipation to see this.
You should have seen it, Elmer! The whole place was like...
Fuck you.
This movie did everything incorrect when it comes to building up anticipation, providing an expectation, and promising a reward and a payoff, and delivering it. What was so hard? The only thing different about Boris is that he can breathe some freaking two-dimensional freaking paper fire. It's nothing even spectacular. It's not even like he can spew a freaking Shin Godzilla hyper beam of flame. That would have been honestly excusable in lieu of him looking exactly the same. Exactly the same. He still looks stupid. He still has those dangly navel piercings on the side of his face. He still looks like a child. There's no evolution whatsoever. They didn't even make his wings bigger, which is what seemed to have been promised in the first part of the movie when we saw something similar to the shape of Boris, but that had more grandiose wings. You could have kept them the same, but giving him bigger wings. Make him look more spectacular. This is what everything is built up to be. I get he's a young dragon, but he's supposed to be an after dragon. And the way that they portrayed it, or at least descriptively, was that he was going to look drastically different. You want to still keep the mind-numbingly ugly face of the character that looks like someone shaved off the top part of it? That's fine. But at least give us something to feel as though we've gotten a reward. All he really gets is to breathe fire. And then later they make a tongue-in-cheek reference to the drawing on the stone, which I was hoping they would address. And all we're left with is...
You know these After Dragon drawings? They're not very realistic, are they?
I think there's a resemblance.
Yeah?
I'm an after dragon.
Shut the fuck up!
I feel like they're laughing at us, the audience. Haha, you thought you were actually gonna see this. Haha, how funny. This made me just hate the movie, honestly. It really was the epitome of a bait and switch, and not a very good one at all.
Tell my story. Draw it up here, without the muscles.
I'm not even saying that the design of the dragon had to look exactly as how it was portrayed on The Rock. I would have loved a bait and switch such as we see a muscular, monstrous looking dragon only to get something more pulchritudinous and elegant and a little bit more mature. I want to feel as though our dragon actually grew, not just in physicality, but also in mentality, but in attitude and demeanor. Instead, we walk away with something looking exactly the same and no payoff whatsoever to what we just spent the entire movie waiting to see. I feel like this entire movie was a series of promises that were never fulfilled. While technically it was a clean-cut story in terms of a linear and very simplistic tale of overcoming your fears, making friends, and thinking of others besides yourself, it felt very shallow, duplicitous, and highly misleading. I've seen a few movies or shows like that even when I was really little, and I walked away feeling the exact same way, especially me growing up, having the love and affinity for monsters the way I did and still do. As a kid, I wanted to see a beast that was strong, a physical manifestation of the growth and sheer will of a character and what they were able to achieve. And there's no better animal to see that displayed on than a dragon, a creature for which magic is innate. And we know it is, especially in this universe, because those tiny little glowing wings are able to lift that dragon. Even though it was heartwarming and I'm glad that Boris is okay, I had so many feelings because I was expecting it to be something amazing and it turned out to just end with a whimper, all the way down to the very awkward and nervous goodbye that they both gave each other at the end when Boris brings Elmer back to Nevergreen and is visibly reluctant to help him, seeing how disgusting the place looks. And what is the icing on the cake is that despite Elmer having used the dragon, he did come back and he did save him and he did become his friend throughout it all and helped him attain his goal. But when the dragon asks him, "What do you want me to do?" and Elmer says, "It's fine, don't worry about it, you know, it's okay, just go to your family, I know you really want that." He never is like, you know, "No, you saved me, I'm gonna help you, that's what friends do." The dragon's like, "All right, deuces." Which is honestly another letdown because the other payoff would have been to see exactly how this dragon was supposed to help Elmer. Providing that this is not actually all in his mind, it would have been interesting to see the dragon, people thinking he's dressed up, and seeing Elmer raise the money that is needed for his mother's shop and everything coming to fruition, and Boris actually fulfilling what he promised. None of that is ever done. Even the characters themselves don't really fulfill what is promised. Everything connected to this dragon character is just a complete waste of time and a transcendental disappointment. Everything reeks of unfulfillment and leaves the taste of displeasure in your mouth. The writers seem to have gone out of their way to not fulfill anything you were hoping for. And in so doing, they have made this movie, although visually pleasing, impermanent in my mind, and unrecommendable as a means of entertainment. The nicest part of the ending of this movie is when Elmer runs into the arms of his mother once again after he has made peace with himself and the situation that they're in via this very meaningless and forgettable journey. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.